I'm going to go ahead and start just as to take advantage of everybody's time on a Saturday. So hello, my name is Sally Harwood and I'm on the board of Haiti Reforestation Partnership. And we're so happy to welcome you today to our webinar called Planting Trees in Pandemic Times. We'll be sharing a lot about what's been happening on the ground in Haiti, as well as what we've been up to in the US. Normally, this would be a live, together, face-to-face luncheon and silent auction, but as we all know, these aren't exactly normal times. So we really appreciate your taking time out of your Saturday to be with us virtually. And I want to give a big shout out and thanks to those of you who've been donating, who've been part of our silent auction, and just a little plug for that. So don't forget that the silent auction is open through 5 p.m. tomorrow, Sunday. And you can email me with any updated bids. The current bids are on our website. How this is going to work administratively is we plan to take questions at the end if there's time. So if you'll see it down at the bottom, you have a little chat button. If you have any questions that come up related to anything that you hear, just put them in the chat thing and we'll try and get to all of them. And if we don't get to your questions now, we'll get to them on our website.
I may not.
And a couple of other administrative things for everybody. If everybody could please mute yourselves, because just in case the dog barks, anyone rings the doorbell, that kind of thing, if you could do that. And as well, if you want to just see the speaker instead of everybody, there is a speaker view for most of us up in the upper right-hand corner that'll allow you to just focus on the person who is speaking. We really appreciate your taking the time, and we think this will hopefully be really informative for all of you. So with that, I'm going to introduce Michael Anello, our Executive Director and our boots on the ground in Haiti, who will give us an update on all things Haiti.
Good afternoon, everybody. As Sally said, I'm Michael, and I'm currently in North Carolina. I came to the States back in September for the birth of my first grandchild. So I've been spending some time here, and I head back to Haiti on Monday. I have 5 different areas that I'd like to talk about today, one of which is my role with Haiti Reforestation, give an overview of what's happening on the ground with CODEP, our partners, talk about the incentive Kai program that we've been involved with, and last year we did a fundraiser for that. Talk about the general climate in Haiti, what's going on down there, how things are. Then talk about the time that I spent in the US due to the pandemic earlier this year, and EDB was here as well for an extended period of time. And then talk about an exciting new program that we're going to be launching come January of 2021. That involves Haiti Reforestation and CODEP. So I'll start with my role for Haiti Reforestation, and I wear many hats at times. I report to the board, and we talk about program development and initiating new programs and how we're going to support programs. In addition, I'm the link between CODEP and Haiti Reforestation. CODEP is the organization in Haiti that actually is planting the trees, planting the seeds, raising the trees, and managing the program on the ground in Haiti. Also, I'm sort of an advisor to CODEP. There's times that they have questions or concerns or comments, and we sort of talk about them and help things along. One of the things that Haiti Reforestation is now being seen at due to our presence on social media is that we're being seen now as an environmental group. More and more people are turning to us through some of the efforts that we have in social media and seeing us as a strong environmental source within the country. Now I'll jump to CODEP and what's happening down there. Over the the next month or so, we will be planting approximately 225,000 trees in our fall planting. The pepinas were all set up for their spring planting in 2021. We also now have 227,000 trees that we'll be planting in the spring. Those trees are a variety of hardwoods, softwoods, and fruit trees. Fruit trees are for nutrition, hardwoods for harvesting for planks and boards, along with the softwoods down the road. The spring planting was 227,000. So we're every year we're putting about 450,000 trees in the ground, which is really making a difference. And you can see us from the atmosphere now. As you do satellite imagery, you can see what's going on down there. And it's sort of exciting for me to see. I've been in Haiti for 10 years, so the difference for me is striking when I walk around the forest with some of the animators. One of the projects we've taken on this year and we're assisting CODEP with is fixing the fish ponds. Back in the earthquake, there was some damage to some of the fish ponds and they stopped being operated. Years ago, Haiti Fund put a lot of money into those projects. And it was for nutrition to harvest tilapia. So they've been sitting sort of stagnant for a while. And currently we are working with a couple of the animators to get them rectified by providing some funding for PVC piping to get them up and going again. On the ground, we're still continuing to make peanut butter. We have a peanut butter business where we're producing peanut butter. We're selling it at the local market. We have 4 different kinds of peanut butter. One is salt, one is sugar, one is hot pepper, and one is with ginger. We sell them at Edby's Market. There's a couple of places in Leogon you can buy it. Sometimes when church groups come down, they'll stop at the depot and they'll buy some. It's a staple for my morning breakfast, so I enjoy it. I like the ginger one. I don't like the other 3 as much. We also are still doing cornmeal. People will grow corn and then bring it over and have it grounded up. The cornmeal will be used for maï moulé and other Haitian dishes. And the other thing that we're doing is still making boards. We harvest trees when they've been matured. We plant 5 trees in the surrounding area where we've harvested a tree. And then we create boards and we sell the boards. And that's income for CODEP. So all of these things I've just talked about are helping CODEP become more and more self-sustaining over the course of time, which is truly important for Haiti Reforestation and for CODEP. One of the projects that we set off on this year was looking at planting seedlings in plastic bags. In the past, we had been buying black plastic bags and putting seeds in them, and that's how they've grown. Back in January of 2020, I challenged the animators and some of the people in the community to start collecting plastic bottles. What they do is they cut the top off the bottle, they drill some holes in the bottom. Those bottles are reusable. It's helping the environment by picking up trash on the Jock Mill Road. So things are really progressing, and the animators are also seeing us more and more as an environmental group. Now I'll jump off over to the Incentive Kai project. Last year, Building Goodness Foundation, which has been a partner with us for a long time, challenged us to a matching grant. Many of you donated to that project. We were able to raise $47,000 and match that with the Building Goodness funding. We came up with approximately $90,000. Last week, they finished the 10th Incentive Kai for this year. So that means through this matching grant, we've been able to put 10 families into Incentive Kais. These are people who have worked the land for many years. They're continuing to be volunteers on the ground. Some are chef of keeps, some of the workers. The animators, they've all gotten their houses in years past. We hope to continue to work with Building Goodness for funding to do these houses. We still have 8 more houses of people on the pass list that we need to provide houses for, but the 10 families that are now in houses are very grateful for the funding, the donations, and the building of the houses. Haiti in general. I'll talk a little bit about the pandemic because that seems to be what's on everybody's mind right now. Haiti has a population of 11.5 million people. As of this morning, I looked at the numbers and it's 9,112 cases. are reported in the country. Most of them are in Cap-Haïtien and in Port-au-Prince. There may be more numbers than that, but due to the limited amount of testing, nobody's really sure. Haitians seem to be very resilient to the disease, to the virus, excuse me. What happens is they get a fever. The fever dissipates after 2 or 3 days. Many are attributing it to that the mean age of a Haitian seems to be a lot younger than here in the United States. People in the States are living into their 70s and 80s and 90s. And those are the people that seem to be dying from this pandemic, or from the virus. Where in Haiti, it's a younger population and people are outside a lot. They're not indoors. So it's not as seen as bad. There are places that I go that masks are required. If I go to the bank or some of the grocery stores, the airport, but people are social distancing. They're staying away from each other. Occasionally, you do see people on the streets with masks on. In Layagon and on the Jock Mill Road, as far as I know, there has not been any reported cases at this time. The political situation. Haiti is continuing to have some violence going on. The government itself is very unstable. Currently, there is no prime minister, and which means there's no ministers. So all the departments, all the ministries are just being run by the president at this point. He has made a promise to the United States and to other countries that he will hold elections in October of 21. I read an article earlier today that I found on Google where he's now saying that he's going to hold off on elections until he institutes a new constitution. So it'll be interesting to see what goes on over the next few months down there. I try to avoid going into Port-au-Prince as much as possible. There are still manifestations which are burning tires and rock throwing and protesting that goes on. They're not going to really come after me, but I still need to be careful. The next situation that's going on right down there right now is the economic situation. Back in September, I guess, the goud was about 120 gouds to a US dollar. And that over the last few weeks, or the last month really, has dropped by 50%. This morning, the goud was 62.23. So the buying has really changed. The US dollar isn't as strong as it was. Nobody's really 100% sure why this has happened. There was rumor that the government dumped a lot of goods into the central bank and bought up US dollars at a lower rate. Some of the wealthy Haitians have been accused of doing the same thing. We're all hoping that after this sort of dip in the buying power from the US dollar, that it'll rally back up and the goud will go back up to about 90 or so. When I went to Haiti 9+ years ago, the goud was at 40-1. So it's been slowly growing over the course of time. And this could be a regulation. No one's really sure, but the people that are suffering are the Haitians themselves. Their buying power has dropped because the markets had inflated all their prices. And now they're holding those prices, but the goud's not worth as much as it used to be. The dollar's not worth as much. So therefore, it's taking more money for them to buy materials. A bag of rice was maybe $30. It's now US dollars, excuse me. It's now up to about $40 US for a 50-pound bag of rice. So buying stuff is really difficult. Most Haitians are now just down to one meal a day. They're no longer doing bread and peanut butter and coffee or juice for breakfast. They're just sort of getting by in the morning. Their main meal is in the middle of the day, and in the evenings, they're not having a meal. So the nutritional component is really starting to suffer as a result of what's going on, both politically and economically. Back in April, Edvi had his appointment to have his prostate cancer checked. He's been coming to Wilmington for a number of years now and been hosted by the Westendorfs, who have been very, very gracious over the course of time, taking them into his house and coordinating his doctor's appointments and supporting some of the projects we do in Haiti. Well, Edvi and I came to the States after a lot of duress. I did not want to leave Haiti, but it got to the point where I felt, I needed to get out because I wasn't sure what was going to go on with the pandemic, and the airports were there was talk about closing the airports. So I left at the end of April, and Edvi and I were stuck in the United States until the beginning of July, at which time we went back. So it's really taken a toll, but Edvi's doing great. All the animators are doing great. I met with them right before I left, and they're looking forward to what's happening this spring. The next thing I will talk about is this exciting program that we're about to launch in January of 2021. When I returned with Edvi in July, Edvi and I and myself had discussed this idea I came up with of doing a mentorship program. A lot of the animators are getting older now, and as they're getting older, they're going to start to retire and enjoy their lives, and we want to see CODA as well as Haiti Reforestation continue for another 30 years. And to make that happen, we need to bring in this next younger generation. So what we've done is that we created an application, and there's a panel that students have to come and talk to. These are students who are graduating from the CODEP school that's right there in the DCLO area. They will come on, they will be paired with an animator and the chef Akit, and they'll learn about the CODEP way of planting, reforestation. In the future, we hope to bring down speakers and experts from the United States who can talk more about good ways of planting and different methods of planting and educate them more so. We're also going to be paying these young people. They will receive $25 a month as a stipend for their time, as well as $25 a month for transportation to the different sites. Through this learning process, we hope this program will grow to a point that we will have laboratories, forests where we can try doing different types of planting. So we see this as the next step for CODEP in being a bigger program. Earlier this year, we had some students come down from Duke who did an assessment for us, and my colleague and board member, Bill Piat, will talk about that next. My request this morning is that people start thinking about sponsoring some of these students. It's going to be $600 a year per student. We're going to have 10 students, and it will help them, and it'll be a 2-year program. So over the course of 2 years, they'll be exposed to a lot of different things. And that's the next generation for us. That's what's going to keep us going. So at this point, I want to turn it over to Bill Piat. Bill, thank you so much.
Thanks, Michael. And thanks to all of you for joining us and participating today to help our friends in Haiti. On the board, one of our goals this past couple of years has been to broaden and diversify our funding sources. Not that should be any great surprise. There's probably not a charity anywhere that's not looking for additional reliable sources of funding. And when we did this, we started by taking a look at, well, what are our assets that we have that we can work with? And turns out, we actually have a lot. I mean, we've got 15 million trees. We've got 2 transformed watersheds. We've got improved nutrition for a whole community of people, demonstrably enhanced quality of life on the Jacmel Road. And we've actually helped to make this entire community more economically viable for people who want to stay and to live there. This all by itself is an incredible legacy that that we've all created together. But unfortunately, we're, just the same, we're still short of funds that we need in order to keep CODEP operating even at its current levels. So we started thinking about it, and we thought, well, we got all these trees. There's this emerging market in carbon credits, and it's growing fast, and it's expected to grow exponentially in the years and decades to come. So maybe we can just take some of this forest asset and we could sell the carbon offsets and use those funds to help support the work of Code Up and to keep us going over time. The only problem is, I mean, it's a nice idea, but where do you get started? I mean, how do you do something like this? And it's a little bit opaque. So as it turns out, the Duke Fuqua School of Business actually has a large program focused on what they call social enterprises. And the social enterprise work is effectively working with charities a lot like ours in order to help us figure out how to be more financially self-sustaining. So we applied to Duke for technical assistance, some assistance to help us quantify the carbon markets and work on a business plan. And we had to go through a surprisingly competitive selection process that at the end of the day turned out, thankfully, with our being selected, is one of their handful of case studies that they did in 2020. It was a team of 4 MBA students. It assumed responsibility for working with us on the feasibility of carbon credits, as well as working on a business plan and how we'd be able to execute that. This consultancy that they undertook was actually, this was the entire work product, and this constituted their entire grade for one of the 5 courses that they took in the spring semester. So it was pretty serious for them, as well as being very important for us. The students were Hunter Bowman, Sergio Aguilar, Paige Johnson, and Jacob Gwilliam. They comprised our well-balanced and really highly skilled team that was working with us. They did a lot of research into carbon markets and looking at what the requirements were and what the opportunities would be for a group like ours, as well as mapping those requirements against the capabilities both of Haiti Reforest as well as CODEP, so that we would have an idea of whether there were any gaps between what we could do and what we needed to do. They met with us on a weekly basis, beginning back in January, using what at the time seemed to be this really exotic tool. You may have heard of it. It's called Zoom. They shared with us they're developing findings and to get our feedback and to get further guidance from us on where it is that they should go next. In March, actually defying Duke's travel restrictions, Hunter and Sergio got on a plane and went to Haiti to meet with Michael and CODEP to learn firsthand about the project. While they were there, they walked a lot of the forest, they did some sample measurements to try to get handles on how many trees we had, what our carbon absorption was, et cetera. And just generally learning a lot about not just the reforestation, but CODEP and the overall project, everything that we're doing down there. They were lucky enough to return to the US just a few days before the COVID lockdowns kicked in and the global stoppage of air travel actually occurred. So we were happy that they could get there, and we were also happy that they could get home and nobody got in trouble, either us or them. Their analysis was both thorough and quite eye-opening. Long story short, even though it seems like a good idea that we ought to be able to sell carbon credits after 30 years of planting trees, it turns out that it's not economically viable given where we are right now. For a whole host of reasons, the net result was that the cost that we would incur to validate our carbon offset would essentially absorb 100% of all the revenues that we could hope to get from selling those carbon credits. Furthermore, our approach, the holistic approach that we developed together with CODEP, for tree planting doesn't lend itself very well to the large scale sale of carbon credits, even though our approach works great for the community there, which is obviously what we were intending in the first place. All was not in vain, though. I mean, during the course of the consultancy, we actually learned a lot. For example, the animators went through a planning process whereby they identified that with sufficient financial resources, our existing workforce could expand their plantings to roughly 750,000 trees a year. And furthermore, we actually have land available to us that would absorb another 5 million trees given our current planning process. Hunter and Sergio, taking a look at what we were doing, made some recommendations about alternatives to the way we're planning that would still help us achieve our objectives, but would yield a denser planting of trees so that we would get more trees per acre. And we could also position ourselves to sell carbon credits in the future, should that be something that we would want to decide to do. So, as encouraging as all this is, the reality is we're still too small for large donors. People like Shell and Procter and Gamble that are actually putting tens of millions of dollars a year into reforestation around the globe right now. But the silver lining is that we can still position ourselves to help individuals and families address their carbon footprints and offset their carbon usage and what they're pumping into the atmosphere these days. So from the ashes of our efforts to become a seller of carbon credits, a new concept was born. And that is today, we are launching a simple carbon calculator on our website designed for individuals and families seeking to protect the planet from their personal carbon producing lifestyles. The concept is actually quite simple. You answer 8 easy questions about your energy consumption to estimate your carbon footprint that is based on EPA data that's running in the background. We then use the data that was developed by the Duke students on the carbon absorption rate of our demonstration forest to estimate the number of trees you would need to plant in order to offset that level of carbon footprint that you have. Then from that, it converts the calculator converts it into a donation amount that you can make to Haiti Reforest. You then sign up for a single or recurring donation that will offset your personal carbon footprint. But of course, given the audience that we have on the call today, we would expect that you, at the very least, would want to become carbon neutral. We hope that you'll actually choose to become carbon negative. I mean, think of how nice that would feel to know that you individually are making the world a better place than it would be if you weren't in it. So the board is enthusiastic about this effort. It provides us a way to reach non-traditional donors and to broaden our appeal to additional sponsors. And it's particularly attractive. I mean, for me, I think that people are now going to be able both to offset their carbon footprints and in the process provide a helping hand to a group of hardworking, dedicated Haitians on the Jacmel Road. So what we're encouraging each of you to do today is to go to the Haiti Reforest website and estimate your carbon footprint. Compare what you need to do in order to become carbon neutral to what you have been doing in support of Haiti Reforest. And please, for the sake of this generation and for future generations, make sure that you're at least carbon neutral. And then at that point, we want you to go talk to your family and your friends and get them to do the same thing. Because in that way, all of us working together can both help out our friends in Haiti and we can make the world a better place. Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Martha Johnson. I'm the board chair of Haiti Reforestation Partnership. And I first want to say a big thank you to Sally, Bill for their comments so far. Every time we've rehearsed this, I've learned something new, and it's just a lot of fun to share our story with you. My work as board chair for the last 4 years has been hugely rewarding for me personally, and also redeeming. And I want to just mention a few things that I have looked back on as particularly special. Our partner organization in Haiti, CODEP, has almost literally moved mountains. And I've been very lucky to be part of this, even at a little bit of a distance. Together, we've celebrated our 30th anniversary. I think it's extraordinary that this project has been going for 3 decades and our trees thrive. We don't just plant trees, we nurture them. And our motto is that it takes 5 years to plant a tree. And CODEP sees that these seedlings become forests. Very important. We also just celebrated the planting of our symbolic 15 millionth tree. And if you go on the internet and look at other organizations, this outranks many of the reforestation organizations globally. Our little organization is really one of the top reforestation efforts. We've also created a video. Thanks to a generous donor, we were able to make one. It's on our website, and I invite you to share it with any community groups or any members of your family. It's a wonderful video. It tells our story vividly and is part of why we are beginning to be noticed by the media and by the environmental community. An example of that was that Michael last spring was invited to be on a panel at the Global Environmental Conference held by the Smithsonian. So our profile is a little bit higher. The video played a part of that, and it's just wonderful to get our story out there. I'm also delighted by the new people that have come on the board. We now have people who are skilled in, get this, skilled in graphics, graphic design, social justice advocacy, technology, forestry, and international development. It is quite a collection of talented people. It's an honor and great fun to be working with all of them. We are a small but mighty organization. We have one part-time staffer, and the rest of us are volunteers. And we have you, our circle of support. Helping Haiti Reforestation Partnership and CODEP should give you great joy and confidence, because your dollars go to an effort that has a track record, a 30-year track record, a dedicated community of almost 800 people in Haiti, shared techniques and methods, and determination like none other. It's a wonderful organization to be a part of. And now I'm going to turn this over to the new board chair, who has relieved me after 4 years, my longstanding friend, Bill Hathaway. Over to you, Bill.
Thank you, Martha. And welcome to you all. It's great to see various faces and to know that you're participating today. I want to know that it's quite an honor and a pretty big challenge to follow Martha as chair of this remarkably talented group of people. So Martha, thank you. Thank you. You are a strong and insightful leader. You guided us through the big picture of a strategic plan, and then you hammered away at a whole bunch of details of data entry and files and keeping us on track. You have a remarkable way of balancing push and patience, but most of all, you've shown a commitment to the cause, to as we say, to plant trees and good things happen. So thank you. And I'll invite everyone else to do a thank you to Martha for her leadership. I look forward to picking up and running with the board and to continue this work. We are a team of people. Many have come out of churches in the past. We are churches and individuals and growing into environmental groups. We are people who care deeply about the hardworking, tenacious, beautiful people in Haiti. We know that planting trees and restoring the ground is all about restoring and rebuilding lives so that there's more food on the table. So it's possible for children to go to school. So I want to thank you all for your care and your support of these wonderful people and friends that we have through CODEP in Haiti. As Bill has mentioned earlier, one of our primary responsibility stateside is to raise funds for this work. So thank you for all who are financial donors. And as I look on the screen, I think that includes everybody here. Your support is valuable. We hope that a whole bunch of people can, we love the really big gifts, but we hope a whole bunch of people will move into the $50 to $100 a month donation. So take a look on the website for your donation. Recurring means monthly, and we would like to build that. And as Bill Piot invited us, a way to do that now is through our carbon footprint, and invite you to take a look at it. And just this morning, I went online and made a special gift because I didn't travel to this annual board meeting. I'm sitting at my home desk. So I made a special gift equivalent to what it would have cost me to go to North Carolina or Virginia for an annual event. So I invite you to join with me, special gifts and recurring monthly gifts, because together we really can make a difference. So thank you. Thank you, Michael, for your remarkable work on the ground, the credibility that you have with our Haitian neighbors, and your close work with the CODEP board. So on behalf of our board, thank you to Martha, and who, by the way, is continuing on the board, which is great. Thank you all, and thank you, Michael. And now I'm turning this over. It goes back to Sally.
Yeah. So now we're going to entertain questions. Unfortunately, only one person has put stuff in, but I've appreciated that. But I have a whole bunch of questions already lined up, so not to worry. But the questions that have been coming have to do with the information we're putting out either on social media or on our website. One has to do with, we don't really have a map of our area posted, so it's difficult to find where we are and really see the difference in the green instead of the denuded mountains, which are our green parts. So that was really more of a recommendation. And the other, you want to say something, Michael?
Please. I'm currently working with a group in Zurich, Germany, who noticed us through social media. And they have asked that we actually map out through satellites the areas that we're working on. When I get back to Haiti, that's my first project. And when I get that together, we'll be able to share that on our website as well. What they're doing is mapping out forests around the world to figure out, this is all part of the UN trillion tree planting for 2021. So we're going to be partnering with this organization and working with them to map things out, map out our future, and start building towards the future of carbon credit.
That's great. The other is a question about the carbon calculator. And I don't know if it'll be Bill's or Martha or you social media gurus want to answer it, but it was, do we plan to do some kind of advertising of the carbon offset calculator that we have? That it's a good way to drive traffic. It's a good way to give people an opportunity to use it. So any thoughts on how that's going to work, Bill?
Yeah, yeah, Brett, thanks for bringing that up. Actually, the carbon calculator is so fresh that it just went up this morning, and it was just completed a couple of days ago. So the intent is absolutely we're going to advertise it through social media to try to drive traffic to it. It's part of broadening our base of contributors. The what we're doing right now, actually what everybody on this call is going to be doing is sort of kicking the tires of it and making sure that it works properly and that it's sufficiently robust. So it'll be, in another week or two is when we'll start advertising it. It'll definitely be advertised and out there before Thanksgiving, because as we get into the Christmas season, we would really like for people to choose to give a carbon-free year away as a Christmas present. But yeah, thanks for bringing that up. And again, everybody, we need you to go work through it just so that we can find out where the bugs are. We learned this morning that there seems to be a bit of a bug in Microsoft Edge, the Microsoft Edge browser, even though it works fine for me on Safari. So if you have a problem with it, it would also be useful to let us know about that.
That would be great. One of the things sort of going on back to Michael, to some stuff you talked about, is I think we're all interested in more about the intern program. Like, how do you see that working? Is this a one-year thing? Who's mentoring? Pretty much flesh out for us, what do you think that program's going to look like?
So we, being Edvi, myself, and Carlos and Renee, came up with a questionnaire. There were 7 questions on it and 2 essay questions. Those were presented to the senior class at the CODEP school. That class had 18 students. We're accepting 10 into the program. They will go through an interview process with Guido, and Guido is one of the animators that people know. He worked over in Lockheed. He was in charge of the gardens. He then grew up, and now that he's grown up, he is one of the animators. He took over from Madame Aleese when she got sick. So Guido is going to run that program, and the reason that I asked Guido to do that is because he speaks some English. So when we have people come down and do some learning classes with these students, Guido will be able to interact with them as well as myself. So the program was a 2-year program. What we hope to have is speakers come in quarterly, both from the United States and globally, as well as from Haiti, who are doing reforestation. They will spend a few days, maybe a week, with these students. They'll stay at the guest house there at the CODEP compound, and they will teach new ways and they'll teach why planting trees cleans up the watershed, why when you walk into a forest, you can smell peat moss. We're trying to create ecosystems. We're not trying to do planting for harvesting of wood for timbering. We're trying to create ecosystems, which cleans up many different things within the environment. So the students will be exposed to an educational component. In addition, they'll have practical experiences. They will work 3 days a week with the chef of keeps. They will go out, they'll learn how to till the land, they'll learn how to take raw land and do the CODEP procedure of, planting vetiver grass to stabilize the soil, then going in and planting eucalyptus, then going in a few years and planting hardwoods. They'll learn those kinds of things. They'll learn how to harvest fruit. So they'll work hand in hand with the animators, the chef of keeps, and the workers. The students themselves will also be responsible for the pepina or the nursery at the CODEP school. So they will work at the school with the other students at the school, the younger classmen, on planting trees, planting seeds to then plant trees. So it's a multifaceted program. It'll encompass 2 years. After 2 years, they will have the opportunity, if the funding goes correctly and if we raise enough money for this program, I'd love to send some of these students to agroforestry school. Haiti's got 5 different schools. The best one is up in Hinch. There's a school up there where we could send these students. Both Renee, Carlos, and Bastian, 3 of the animators, have gone to further education and learned about forestry and learned about planting trees. And, you know, it'd be nice to send some of these there, the students there, and they're going to be the leaders of CODEP in the future. I hope I've addressed some of that, Sally. If there's more questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Okay. No, I think it's a really exciting program. So it seems to me something that, you know, kind of the future for all of us in terms of that. So you used a term, and I need you to explain better to me. So we talk about reforestation, we talk about agroforestry, differences, what are we really doing, that kind of thing.
We're doing both. To be honest with you, agroforestry is both planting. Okay, so let's take a cereal box. It's square, right? So in Haiti, we don't plant that entire cereal box, that entire piece of land with trees. Some of it is trees, some of it is peanuts, some of it is black beans, some more is more trees. So it's a combination. And what we're doing is we're creating an ecosystem. We're creating a healthy environment. One of the things that some of the people on the call, and the only person I see is Sally. I don't see everybody. So some of the people have been to the demonstration forest. And you know, when you're walking down that hill and you enter into the demonstration forest, there's a change of the air. There's a change of the quality of the air. What you're walking into is a biodiverse system where there's many things going on there. If you just take trees and you plant them in a row just to harvest them for timber, it's very different. So what we're creating is a diverse system. There's black beans, there's fruit trees, there's hardwoods, there's a little bit of everything going on. And that's very typical of the planting in Haiti. Plus, if you have that same cereal box, some places you can't plant trees. They're going to wash away. During the hurricane that we just had, a lot of our seedlings, well, 20% of our seedlings washed away back in August when the hurricane came through, Hurricane Laura. People have also seen Haitians are really good at terracing land. They step the land, and as they step the land, those are black beans. Those are peanuts. Those are things that are going to stabilize the soil, but produce other things. So it's just not reforestation that we're doing. We're taking a look at the whole picture.
I guess that leads me to kind of another question in terms of how are the decisions made of, so even within the trees, what kind of trees do you want? Do you want fruit trees? How many are hardwoods? What are people able to do with the different options, and kind of how those decisions are made? So
most of the decisions are made by the animators. There is the executive committee of CODEP, and Edvi, Clement, Renee, Carlos, sometimes Jean-Claude, they go and visit every nursery. And in the higher elevations, we tend to grow chocolate and coffee because it does better in that environment. In the lower ones, we tend to do more pines and softwoods within our forest. So part of the next step of CODEP and with this mentorship program is if we have some experimental labs, like if we have tracts of land, we can play with, you know, okay, this tree's going to grow better here and not there. Now the animators and the chef keeps and the people that have lived on that mountainside, they know that mountainside better than I know the palm of my hand. And they tell me what we're going to plant. That's their decision. I don't do that. There was a comment that came across the bottom of the screen I read a minute ago of, you walk into these established forests that have been there. Demonstration forest is 27 years old. And I can walk down that path, and next to the demonstration forest, and you see it in our video, is just eucalyptus. There's only eucalyptus trees growing there. A couple of, black beans and things. You walk into that demonstration forest and I hear bugs and I see birds, and it's attracting all kinds of life where, on the mountainside, you see nothing. Renee, one of my best friends in Haiti, as well as he's an animator, but he's one of my best friends. A long time ago, took me by the hand one day, and we were walking down to the demonstration forest, and he laid both of his hands out to me. And he said, when I was a child, this mountain looked like the palm of my hands. And I said, Renee, what are you talking about, the palm of your hands? And he said, they're white. They have no color. And I was like, well, yeah, you're a black man, you're Haitian, of course they don't have color. And then he turned his hands over and he said, and now look at my hands, and now look at the earth. And I almost cried on the side of the mountain with him, because what he has been part of and has created was earth, where there was no earth before. And that earth is going to feed families, and it's going to nurture people. And, many, many times I have been told that Haiti Fund started out as a nutritional program. And yes, it provides food, but it also provides life. And I know I went on a tangent, Sally, but I hope I answered your question.
You did. And it's nice to remember how far we've come too. I think, unfortunately, for those who've not been there in the early days, it's hard to remember just how cracked and dry that earth really was, with no topsoil. I mean, I used to say it looked like a lunar landscape to me.
Yeah, it was a different land, a different place. Even in my time there, I'm seeing young forests. I'm seeing, on the far side over in Grand Mois, where Carlos is working in Madame Inez, those are young forests. But, every year I go up there and check them out. And every year I see more and more growth on these trees. And I'm starting now to see brown soil where it's been spotty for a long time.
One thing that this leads me to is, if not now, when do you think people will be able to come back to Haiti? In terms of coming as visitors? I mean, I miss going, I miss seeing everybody. And what do you really think it looks like going forward?
As much as you miss coming, I miss having people there, probably more so. In the last 3-5 years, nobody comes anymore. Haiti's this forgotten place. And it saddens me, because I get to enjoy it and see it and reap the benefits of it, but other people don't. I think that travel-wise, it's pretty darn safe. Like getting on an airplane and getting to Haiti, that whole piece is simple. Like Bill Piat traveled to the DR last week. So the pandemic piece is okay. For me, it's the violence, getting from Port-au-Prince, getting to the airport is okay. Getting out to Port-au-Prince, out to Léogâne from Port-au-Prince, sometimes can be difficult. Once you're in Léogâne, it's pretty darn safe. We don't have issues out there. Up on the mountain, we don't have issues. You don't really hear about it or see it. Like, I'm up and down the mountain pretty much every day, and I don't run into problems. I do at this point have enough contacts within the police department, within the national police, where, if Sally, if you want to come down next week, I'll get you safely to Léogâne with me, and I encourage that. I'm going to say next year, You know, I think within 2021, sometime in the spring, things are going to settle down. That seems to be the pattern within Haiti. From October to February, it seems to get a little violent, you know, and it's all around election time and blah, blah, blah. But I truly believe that come springtime, my doors are open.
Great. Well, put that on our calendars.
It's a date.
I'm ready to come back. It's been too long. You mentioned the school. What exactly is the relationship with the local school, and how are we helping them and they helping us?
So Haiti Reforestation gives the school $500 a month, $500 US a month. And what that does, it helps the salaries there. It is a CODEP run school. So it's a branch of CODEP. It's not a branch of Haiti Reforestation, even though we do make a donation to it. But what we get out of it is 1 day a week, we have one of the animators go in and talk about reforestation, planting trees, sort of the environmental piece to the students that are there. It is it's a 1 through 12 school. It's where they don't have a kindergarten. They'd like to start a kindergarten, but they don't have the funding for that. Maybe in the future, but that's sort of our relationship with them. And I'm in and out of there all the time.
That's great. How about, I do kind of want to open it up if anybody feels that there's something burning question-wise for them. I don't want to deny you the opportunity. So if anybody would like, you can unmute yourself and ask any of us anything directly. Okay. Well then, to honor people's commitment for this hour, I think we will end things. But I want to thank Michael and Bill and Martha for being part of this, for working so hard to bring this to all of you. I want to thank Carrie and Dan and Melanie for your help in different ways in getting this off the thing. I would, and thank you very much for making that carbon offset donation. I would like to thank everybody for your time. I hope you feel that you've learned a lot about the important work that Haiti Reforestation Partnership and CODEP are doing in Haiti, and that you will become part of our family and be part of the donations. Not to let you off the hook, don't forget the auction is still open until Sunday at 5 p.m. and I look forward to having you do that. Also, I wanted to say, if you know somebody who would have liked to have been a part of this and just couldn't make it today, we are recording it, so it will be on our website. And basically, I just want to thank you for your time. And I look forward to next year, if not before, seeing you all face to face. So thank you again for everything.
Thank you.